Okay. Hello again. Um, this one is, the title is Humanity Lost to Itself and the Archon God. Now, that simply means that's if I can do it, because there's the interference, the matrix operates all the time, even in making a video. Now, this is because the Archon God controls all the matrix, and he's a duality God, so he likes to play, and he plays like a naughty child sometimes, in the sense that, well, in the sense that he likes to play tricks, and he likes to toy with us and play dirty tricks, even, you could say. But that's understandable, because we play into it, and we like to play too, you see. So this is it. We only react to what is put to us. And that's why the title was, it just occurred to me, I wasn't even going to make a video, and I hope that not too many people are listening, because it won't be a very good one. I had nothing planned at all. It just come to me and I just did it in 5 minutes. But, you know, it just occurred to me that we play, and the reason the title was Humanity Lost to Itself and the Archon God is because if you really look at it, we are defeating ourselves, and I see it daily. I see it against me, because it's not just the God that comes against humans or tests them or puts them into the duality. They particularly do this to themselves too. That's why the title is Humanity is Lost to Itself, because we have put ourselves into the box. We go along with everything that is in the matrix. We react only to the circumstances around us. We never stop and say, hey, what is really causing this circumstance? Is the God testing me? Because he is. Although he is a duality God, which means good and bad, right and wrong, and love, hate particularly, you know, that is his way of thinking. Oh, I'm so sorry. The mind parasite just came in right now. Now, this is what I'm talking about. See, that's if I can get it out, because there is planes going over here every 30 seconds, not to mention all the other disturbances. Now, this is to make me concentrate. But unfortunately, I am at a low level, and so concentrating when the opposition is being put up is rather hard. This is the test. This is how you have to play in this world. There will always be opposition. Now, I lost my concentration there, you see. The mind parasite came in because when I heard the noise, my frequency went down. I got angry, you see. And this is why I'm trying to say that we are defeating ourselves as much as the God. Like, you can blame it on the God, but the God merely tests. And humans, us, myself included, over a lifetime, fail that test every second of every day. Because every time we allow ourselves to be angry, to be hateful, to be brought into a low level by the circumstances, instead of acknowledging them somehow and saying, hey, this is a test, this is the Archon God playing with me, it's almost impossible not to, because the Archon God uses humans, not himself. Like, it's not like, whereas if I was actually face to face with the God himself, instead of with his minions or with humans who are controlled or directed to operate for him, shall we say, it would be much easier, because then you would know what you're dealing with at least. But while you're dealing with human on human, it's almost impossible, I know myself, to not take it personally and to not react at a personal level. Now, what I'm saying, okay, I've got to try to keep my concentration here because another fighter pilot is coming overhead. We are in a war zone. You know, like it's actually, this is the joke of it, and it's not a funny joke, but that is the funny thing. Like, that is not a fighter plane going overhead, okay? It really isn't. It's a regular plane. But the noise and the frequency of it is the same as if it was a fighter plane. So for me as a human, I'm hit with that noise and that frequency, which is negative, and it keeps my vibration low, amongst other things, of course. Obviously, if it was just an aeroplane, I would probably be fine. But the point I'm making is that the reason that we defeat ourselves and therefore the Archon God then has much more, then we are operating much more in his matrix. The idea is to get out of his matrix, I think. That is the test. But we are convinced to keep playing on a daily basis because we buy into the reality of the Archon God's matrix. We buy into the circumstances that are around us. We buy into and believe it to be real, everything that happens. Everything from the smallest, it's all fake. It is all part of the matrix. Every single thing is false, particularly the bad things, because they are designed to get you into the low frequency. Anything that goods that happen is probably a human creation, but it will be limited and it will be still maneuvered by the matrix for some other purpose, because it's all his domain. Make no bones about that. Do not delude yourself that you have any control over your earth. You do not. It is the God's earth. We have given it to him a long, long time ago. And we've given ourselves to him too. That's why the title is Humanity Lost to Itself and to the Archon God, because you have to acknowledge now that it's his domain and you have to play in it. Your only choice now is whether, and most people have already made that choice because we buy into it. We've even we're doing it subconsciously. We don't know that we're deliberately playing in the game and giving ourselves over to the matrix. We think that, we don't think that. But if we knew that, if we knew it was really a matrix and that we were really playing a game and that the odds are stacked up against us, basically, because we have given the whole earth over to the Archon God. Like, he didn't take it, we gave it. You could say they came, they saw, they conquered a long, long time ago, if you want to look at it that way. But the real reality is they couldn't really just come and take it. They really didn't have the power to take it totally by force, I don't think. But they did have the power to take it by force, depending on what happened, because I wasn't around, so I'm speculating here. Most of what I say is speculation, even though I might believe quite a bit of it myself, okay? It's for you, who's ever listening, to investigate for yourself, to look into these things yourself and to find your own truth about it. Don't take notice of me. I'm just one person. I only have my own experience. You will have yours. But I do think I've got a lot of stuff from other people, so I'm quite honestly saying that. So don't think that you can figure it all out yourself, because unless you're particularly brilliant, you probably won't be able to. I know I wouldn't have. I knew things were wrong. I knew things weren't what they appear to be. I knew the world was false. but I didn't know why, who was causing it, or what was behind it, or what had happened in the past, or what I was, or what everything is. I still am figuring it out, okay? So don't expect me to have all the answers, and I may even get a few things wrong. I know I got one or two things wrong, not wrong, but when someone asked me something on a last video, because I have the concepts right, but I don't always get all the details because I haven't studied these things for years like some people, you know? So even when I say archons, like, I've never met them, as I've said. So they could be different to what I am informed, but I know there is some entity, okay? I know there is a controlling entity force, a supernatural, interdimensional, alien, whatever term you want to use, that operates outside this Earth system and that controls the people in it from the top down to us, okay? That's what I do know, but I have not met these entities. I have not one of those people at all. I live in the real world, okay? And the real world has just turned around for me. But anyway, I've gone off track again. I better get back on track. Wish someone could dong me on the head and say, get that woman back on track. Now, it's hard though, you see. Now, when they came, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, they may have took over the humans that were here. By that I mean we gave it over to the Archon god, right? And their minions, whatever, because I don't know how many there were at that time. They were a race from outside of our domain. They came here and they decided they want to settle here, shall we say, or at least get things from here, get things from humans, and get things from the land, etc., whatever, you know, which is like we do because we emulate them. They turned us into them or like them and made us emulate them, which is what we do. Everything we do is wrong to our original self, okay? If you think it's evolving, fine. But it is different to what we originally were and to where we were originally meant to head. We went down a different path altogether, and now we are already trapped in that path. I just say trapped because we can't really go back now, not unless everyone decided to completely change their whole thinking. Now, I'm saying that originally maybe they could have seduced humans, you know, impressed them, because they might have looked fantastic and they would have done magic tricks. Humans were capable of all these things and much more, but at that point they were seduced and impressed and did not realize that they were meant to develop beyond all that. Because they were young and babies, and they were meant to evolve very slowly. Humans were meant to evolve very slowly. They were not meant to be jump-started like happened when these Archon god came. But we weren't jump-started, we were jump-started in a totally different direction, is my view. Now, it's up to you to decide whether we've taken the right direction or whether we should go back to the garden, shall we say, and start again, or at least try to get back what we had and then start to develop ourselves again to where we can be much greater and without technology, because the technology we have, in my opinion, is inferior and unsuitable for us. Now, that's another question too, because even if you're I'm going to say this right now, even if you are a very technological person and you believe that technology is an asset for humans, I would say this, that at the present time, because we are not evolved in ourselves, of course, technology becomes a necessary evil. But what I am saying is that we have the wrong sort of technology for ourselves. We have inferior technology for for ourselves as human beings. We need to find another technology, even if you're going to go along that line. This technology we have is not beneficial to us. It is not good for our development as human beings, and also it is very limited, inferior technology in light of what technology there really is. But we are living in primitive technology that can only take us into a limited direction, when we should at least be evolving naturally. Even at a technological level, we're going the wrong way because we've got inferior technology, okay? This technology is not going to take us into a world where we can advance at all. It will basically just take us more limited, because the technology will take over. We need technology that is our asset, that helps us to develop and keeps us going, not something that limits us and will take over us to where we are extinct. You know, that doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. And so what I'm saying is, even if you are one of these sort of people, which there's a lot that believe the future is technology, even if you are right, we have the wrong technology. We do not have advanced technology. We do not have truthful technology. We have technology that limits us. We need to get advanced technology that not enhances us, but is a servant to us, and that shows us the truth, to where we can not be limiting ourselves, but in other words, to where one day we would need very little technology anyway, because my actual, the original idea that I have received is that we were meant to develop naturally, very slowly, and be superior in ourselves, to where all the things that we use technology for, we would have just had naturally in ourselves, in what you call a natural computer, not this artificial computer that is nothing to do with us, that is so separate from us, it's alien for us, and it is only something that will take over us, not something that benefits us. We already have all the necessary equipment in our body originally, but it's all been shut down thousands and thousands of years ago. Which, you know, that was because, but anyway, I go back to when the Archon God came, and this is what would have happened. It could have happened any number of ways. He could have seduced just by the fact that we were young and innocent and had not, if he had come here if he'd come here like maybe right now, we would have probably said, wouldn't have been impressed even. But you know, a baby is going to be impressed by you just dangling a little plaything in front of it. But a baby grows into an adult, and that adult then knows and doesn't interested in playing with the little jingly thing that the human dangles in front. It knows what everything is by that time. But that's what we were like, you see. We were meant to naturally develop into very superior beings. I think the most superior beings in the universe, and because my information has been that we were the genetic cumulation of the very best of the universe, shall we say. And I use the universe only as a term because I don't really understand the workings of the world around me. And as we live in a fake world and we are limited and don't know how this actual world even operates, these are just words that I have to use because of language. But, you know, I'm saying that we were the best of all that there is put into a seed on this earth to develop and grow in conjunction with the earth and all the living things. And the living library, that's what they called it, you know, and that's what it was meant to be. But the beings got through the atmosphere somehow. That was actually protected, I'm informed of, by history. But they managed to come through with their technology. They weren't supposed to, but they did come through. It doesn't matter even if there was nothing there and they just come. The thing is that the humans had the choice, but they were babies. Babies will be impressed by anything, and that's one way. But they also could have just created fear. In other words, if you see something like even now, if we saw something coming out of the sky in some sort of craft or something, anything at all that we are not familiar with, that we've never seen before, there would have been fear. You would have been impressed, but also fearful. So therefore, you would have went along with whatever those entity or God says, whatever the Archon God says or tells you to do. He would have had power by that, by your fear, because the Archon controls humanity through fear. He has since then and has done down through the centuries. And you know yourself. I know I've lived my whole life in fear, fearful of small things, and much less now that I see the big picture. I'm like, gee, just fear, fear, fear. And that's how they get control of humanity. And that's why I say humanity's lost to itself, because it hasn't come into its own realization of what it is. And it doesn't realize that its very fear brings the vibration down, which means that then the Archon God can manipulate with the love, hate, the right, wrong, the good, bad duality mindset that he puts into human beings, which was never originally there, I don't think. It's a setup of this matrix. It's a setup of the Archon God, because he understands that humans are emotional. That is their asset. But even someone's good points can be used against them if they are not aware of it. If you are unaware that you're being manipulated, a bit like if you have a relationship and you like someone, or you're frightened of someone, or you're frightened of someone in authority, that person manipulates your personality, manipulates your good points, even your emotions, because emotions are the good points of human beings. They are their superior things. Technology is the opposite to that, as I've said, but humans don't get that. It took me a lifetime to get it. I used to think, oh, I'm too emotional at times. I wish I didn't react to this and that. But that's only because I'm not living in a true world. That's because I'm living in a matrix where my human nature is being exploited and used against me and used against every human being. This is the problem, because it's not our domain. We are human in an artificial world that is not even ours. Even if it was artificial, like I say, you could have technology if you had control of that technology, and if it was natural type of technology for your human being. Because, you know, yourself, just think about it. We have a certain type of technology, but that doesn't mean that science or people couldn't have invented other technology. I've looked into some of these things myself just recently, and I'm like, gee, we use everything that's wrong, and we have had the choices in the past. But you see, there have been alternatives, but we don't use the alternatives. And that's not because we're good or bad or we make the wrong choices, because a lot of the time I do not make a choice myself. It's usually other people that make choices for you. And if someone can, you know, like if someone else has a different idea to you and says, oh, this is inferior technology, but this is cheaper, or this is, oh, we're only going to use it for some purpose, we're not going to use it so that human beings advance. Well, you know, it's like that, isn't it? You know, like it might be because each person, like I might have something, right, good. Oh, no, it's not true. I might have some technology, right? There might be good technology and bad technology, but the bad technology might be cheaper, and I might be only interested in, um, I don't know, I might only be interested in using that technology for a business that I have or something, because I want to survive in this world, and I'm not particularly spiritual, you know what I mean? And I'm not particularly interested in the long-term effects. I just want to make some quick buck or something, and that's fair enough. But the thing is that in doing that, I might bring in bad technology and say, well, you know, might not even be thinking in 50 years' time, much less 100 or 200 or whatever. But you see, that's not a very good example, but you see what I'm saying is that I'm saying that there's always been alternatives to everything we even use, but we always use the worst things, not because I mean, because once you start adopting them, if they're put in your face and you start to adopt something wrong, like everything that we use, that's because, and I've learnt these things now, I'm really surprised at how most of the bad things that we use have been pushed onto us because they serve some other purpose for the matrix, like get rid of something toxic and put it into something else, let humans use it because that way it saves us getting rid of it and it saves money or this or that. It's like that. It's a kind of, that's the world we live in. It's not about, and we as humans don't know this anymore because we're so much bought into the matrix. We don't understand how we are meant to operate even with the natural world. We don't see that. We see nature as just something that serves us. And even those that don't think that way, because now we're on that kick too, but all these things are only mind games, really. You have to be able to see that even when there's something good put to you, that it's a mind game, because everything is controlled by the matrix. You have to accept that. If you don't accept that, then, there's no point in listening to me at all, because that's the bottom line. That really is the total bottom line. You're in a matrix and all you have is yourself, right? That's why the title was Humanity is Lost to Itself, because you do not have any real power or control over your earth. It's a matrix that is controlled by the Archon God. It's his domain. He took over it a long time ago. Like I say, fear sometimes could have been how he took over too. There could have been any number of ways that he would have seduced, maneuvered humans into merging with him, breeding with him, adopting his duality way of thinking, adopting his way of looking at the actual earth. Because don't forget, if you're from outside of the earth domain and you come to earth from another system, shall we say, and you are not a human, even though, we look a little bit like these beings, that is because there's been breeding and a downgrade of the human being by the mixing of the genes, etc. That happens because if you're a pure breed and then there's another pure breed you mix, you're not going to get a pure breed, you're going to get a mixed hybrid, as they call it, and that will be inferior to the two separate things, but it could still be quite good, but it won't be as good, particularly if you've got two entirely different species that are meant to develop totally individually, separately, to their fullest capacity. You know what I'm saying? If a human being is meant to develop fully at their full capacity using all their DNA and all their mind, but that becomes compromised by breeding, then some of the DNA gets closed down and some of the mind gets closed down. That is a compromise. That is a hybrid, but it is, well, common sense tells me that that is not going to be. On the other hand, the mixing with the other being, depending on what that other being is. But if that other being is a different type of being altogether to the human being and has developed a way and just into technology, whereas the human was meant to develop to full capacity as a natural human computer, as opposed to an artificial technical computer that is limited by comparison. Work it out yourself. Figure out what that hybrid is going to be. Is it going to be superior or less? From the human point of view, But also there's a purpose for that, because then the God plonks us over time, has changed the earth, because we were meant to be naturally in sync with the earth, you see. and the technological being is not that interested, because technology is not interested in organic living life so much, you see. They're only interested in technology, and sometimes they're interested in minerals and stuff like that, but they're not interested because they don't need, they don't interact spiritually with organic life. Organic life to them is just like, it has no value to them. It only has value if it serves them, like if it was food to eat, like we're food to eat for them, and the same way that we have now emulated them and animals, all our life forms that we were meant to be in sync with, they are our food. And this is what has happened. But also what we don't realise, I think, and I could be wrong about this, is that I say I could be wrong about it. I don't think I am wrong. Okay, I'm going to say that. But I'm saying that because I realise that you can't just say to people, this is a fact. People have to figure it out for themselves and either go with it or find something else, or say, well, look, I don't agree with that. Because most people do believe that we evolved a certain way, as I did for most of my life, and that we are meant to consume certain things, and that we're allowed to, we have that right. But I believe this is all due to the interaction with the Archon God, because that's what he does. He consumes all these things. He doesn't respect organic life at all, and he has no connection to it, you see. This is the thing. So it's not his fault. It's reasonable for him, as a technical being, to not care about us or organic life, but it's not reasonable for us as organic, natural, spiritual beings that should have evolved to a higher level and was in contact with all the life on this earth and the earth itself and every living thing, anything that's organic. We were actually connected to it. It was our living library. It was part of us. We were part of it. And also at that time, originally, I'm told that the animals and the life was completely friendly to us. We were in sync with it. Whereas now we're in sync with the technology and the Archon God. We have went into his world. We play, and his matrix has become more technical and less organic. And we have alienated ourselves from our natural sources. And the animals and things originally also, they also were like us. They did not consume one another either, just as we did not consume them. But this is all evolved because the world has changed, because we decided to give it over to the Archon God. We went a different direction. And that's the world we live in now. And this is the world that we've had for a long time. We believe this has all been, that it's all evolution, and it kind of is, but it's evolution into something different to what we originally started out as. Only you can decide whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. And then you would have to believe that it's true too, I suppose, you know. But at any rate, I hope I've put that a little bit good, but I don't think I have. But also I would like to say that if this is, I'd have to say this is speculation, because I can't say it's a fact, because you have to prove everything. And I can't sit here and give you 100% proof. You will have to find these things for yourself. Maybe if you see some truth in it and some evidence, and you can even relate it to the world around you, and even your own experience. Think of how you interact, how humans, I believe humans have even changed vastly in the last 50 years, even at a human level. You know, I believe we've become much more, and I think if you look around, most people might even agree with this. That's if they, but they might say it's for the best. They might say it's good that we've become, that some of us have become stronger in this way, and some of us think this now, and that's, you know, but that is, but bear in mind, as I said before, we are in a matrix. So don't presume that everything that you think is what you really think. Don't presume that you haven't been directed, because you have to have been, because we're in a matrix. Once you accept that, as I do, then everything else puts on a totally different complexion. Then I can no longer say this is really what I have thought over a lifetime. I have to say that's what I thought over a lifetime. That's what I thought I was over a lifetime. That's what I thought I should think about this and that. But now I'm saying, hey, no, this is what the Matrix told me that I should think about myself and about the world and about everyone else. And I was in a world of delusion and fantasy and did not realize, as the movie The Matrix says, you're in a fantasy. You've been living in a fantasy, Neo, and this is so true. And I will go on about the movies in another one because the movies are all fact. They are the facts presented to you in a fantasy form so that you have the choice to see the truth and decide the truth or walk away from the truth. And then the God says, hey, humans have done it again. They've done it to themselves again. I'm not responsible. They had the choice. They went with the Matrix. They went with the beliefs. They went with the belief systems. They went with the belief systems. They went with the physical systems. They went with their fear. They went with their animosity and with their suspicion. They didn't go with their natural spirit to where they wanted to be free and rise up to a high vibration to where they could leave the Matrix if they wanted. They can stay too, because if you're at a high vibration, you will be happy even in the Matrix. But no one is happy in the Matrix because very few people are at a high vibration, you see. Instead, you are then playing for the Matrix. You are ruled by the anger and the disappointment and the stress and all these things that the Matrix will put onto you. The whole idea is the Matrix is, and we've all failed this. I know I failed it my whole life. You're tested all the time to have a chance to make a right choice to where you can raise your vibration. Because if you make a good choice, if you make, I think, a loving choice, essentially, you know, essentially this is true, and I've failed in this myself. If you make a genuine heart-loving choice, chances are you will raise your vibration and those around you, and therefore you will create a better reality for yourself. This is what it really comes down to. This is what I've now discovered. It's mind-blowing for me. Not that we not that we don't think this is true anyway. We always think that, but we don't actually put it into practice. We usually operate out of fear and suspicion and intellect. We'd never operate out of just free love to where we just think, hey, I shall do this in love and everything will work out. If we had all done that all along, everything would have worked out fine and we would have a different matrix. It would be more balanced. It wouldn't be this love-hate swinging backwards and forward, this right-wrong, this war that's going on, literally, physically and mentally all the time with people. And the Archon God plays and manipulates the human mind with these things. And he can read the thoughts. We have given them now the technology to invade our mind. In the past, they did it by other means. They always had technology, but we didn't incorporate it into ourselves. So we were freer. That's why I say we were better off even a few years back. Most people disagree with me there, but I can remember. Okay, so the technology offers you a lot of convenience, makes you lazy, makes you dependent on it, and it saves you time because we're pressured by time in this matrix. That's the idea. Pressure people with time, so then they have to use the devices to save time, and then they're hooked on the devices, the technology. But in reality, we were freer and we had more privacy and we weren't suspicious of one another. My family, my parents used to leave the door unlocked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never locked the front or the back door of the house when they went out. They had a key, but the only time they ever locked it was if they went away for a few months. You know, if they went out every day, they never locked the doors. Now that would be unheard of today because we live in a fear-driven security mind control matrix. And I'm saying this was not that long ago. This was in my lifetime. I'm getting angry. I'm so sorry. I really am. I'm sorry to get angry about it. But, oh dear, I'm so sorry. Oh, I apologise. Oh dear. I should turn it off. I'm terribly sorry. But when you think, as I do now, of these things, little and big things, that we were actually freer not that long ago, and we were not as suspicious. We still had a bad world then, but now we have really, and with the technology, as I say, we invite the God, we okay the God to invade our mind and our privacy. Literally, we give it over with the technology. Every time you use the computer, you are giving it over to a system where everything you think and do on that is sent out to a source, okay? Now, you don't know what that source is, even if it's humans that are working for the God, or even if they were just humans at the top that control the systems, because someone has to control the systems, you know, common sense. That's just being in the real world. That's not any of the fancy stuff that you think is probably ridiculous that I talk about. You know, this business that I talk about is only an extension in saying that, hey, because I can see that nothing is coincidence, and because I can see that everything is an operation, shall we say, this world is just like a big operation. You know, everything maneuvered, everything. It's a setup, a total matrix that is all designed, and nothing happens randomly. So once you start to see that, you say it's too much of a coincidence, all these things, everything. Once you start to see the picture falling in, that it all fits together and that everything is coming from a source, at some point you sort of say, well, how advanced is that source? And then if you go into the history, you say, well, look, okay, I now realize that it's not just humans, although humans work for the source. Humans work for the Archon God. Don't take every terminology that I say literally. Just get into the concept, because it doesn't matter what, you know, it would be nice if I could specifically talk about the God and describe maybe his appearance, but don't forget that, you know, you're talking about something that we don't comprehend, because it's a God only because we don't comprehend it, because we've been limited. If we were at our high capacity, as we were meant to develop to, we would understand the God very well, and we would know exactly how he plays this matrix, and how he plays humanity, and how he plays the game, and we would see it all very clearly, and we would be able to read his mind the same way that he reads ours. But we have not got our human technological computer functioning at all. It has been downgraded to zilch. Now, an example that I'm going to use of this, right, just before I go, is this. Now, I was talking the other day to somebody. Okay, I won't go into details or name people. I'd like to, but they may not like it, you know, so I'm not going to. And we were talking about the difference between cats and dogs, right? Silly thing, I know. But I only didn't realise that dogs are different to cats in one area at least. Just wait for the plane to go over. I'm very sorry. This makes my videos look worse than even what they already are, but I can only do the best I can. And, you know, I would suggest you look at more professional ones and more informative ones to fill in all the gaps. You know, I'm only here to talk to just regular people that are starting to see that there's something wrong. There's always been something wrong with this world. It's always been, you know, fighting, and never been stable, and never been certainly at peace. We all know that. It never has been, ever. Not the whole thing, ever. But we always had a chance to rectify it and to keep the human race going. There was always that chance, whereas technology will deprive us of that chance, because it is so encompassing that we're limiting ourselves even more. We're almost trapping ourselves totally. That's why I say humans are, the title of the video I'm trying to remember, you know, humanity is lost to itself more than what it even is to the Archon God. Because if we got ourselves back, then we could decide for ourselves if we want to still keep playing in the Archon's God's matrix, or how we will play in the Archon God's matrix, or if we wish to leave the Archon God's matrix. You know, we would have those choices, but we would know what is really going on, and we would know what the God is, we would know what the world is, we would see the game, and we would have abilities to where we could have these choices, and we would know ourselves, because we're lost to ourselves. We think that we are limited. We don't think that we were meant to evolve that way. We think that we are at the highest level of evolution at the present time, with our limited, pathetical, primitive computer technology that basically is just a system, a surveillance system, really, just for the God around the globe, really. That's really all it really is, to be honest. But it is a communication source for us too, because we can't communicate naturally the way we're supposed to. So of course I'm using it now, you see, because I'm limited, because I'm not able to raise my frequency. And you say, why not? Well, that's because the Archon God brings in surroundings that keep the frequency low. And being aware of all this world situation now too doesn't exactly make me feel good. I think, as I said before in that Dermot Beats the Archon Matrix one, he was a supposedly limited human being, sorry about that, a so-called human being who was classed by medicine as retarded, and he has beat the matrix only because he was not buying into it. He didn't have to have the knowledge of the matrix. He just operated through love and at a simple level, and did not allow too much fear to come into his life and too much animosity. And so his vibration was always reasonable anyway, you see. So that's the secret. And I could not get into his mind. He probably in his own mind knew more than what we saw that he knew. We saw his ignorance about the actual world as being retarded. But a lot of that is just ignorance of information. It doesn't mean that he couldn't think. You see what I'm saying? You know, that's what I now think anyway about him in particular. But I've gone off the track. Oh, sorry about that. But talking about the abilities that humans should have had, this is just a very simple thing, right? I learned the other day, I've always liked cats and dogs. I like all animals because we're meant to, and also they're not as complicated as human because they're not as brainwashed by the matrix, you see. They're not in that duality. They have been compromised too, as I pointed out, you know, but in general, they're still a lot more, not as bad as us. But by that I mean they don't generally attack their own kind so much. Some of them do, and even that it works against what I think they would have originally done. You know, that is strange. But I've often wondered about that. Why do some animals even attack their own kind? Must there's other kinds too. But also they attack other kinds because a lion supposedly eats meat, so it has to kill the poor little beautiful deer. But that is what has evolved, I think. I don't think that would have originally been the case, but it doesn't matter if it is anyway. But you still will see even some lions attack even its own kind, just as humans attack their kind, humans, and destroy their own kind, which is the same as destroying themselves, because we need ourselves in order to survive. Instead, we think that technology is our friend and that will help us to survive. And if we have a robot friend, that will help us to survive. It may not be our enemy. It could be. But it is not our kind. It will not benefit us as much because there will be no real genuine trust. But that's something that's been lost between humans too, you see. Humans should have nothing but trust and confidence in their fellow human beings, but they don't. They only have trust in those that they've scrutinised and it works for them, or what, I don't know. But the thing is, they don't trust every human being on the planet. You know, and when I say every human being on the planet, I mean every human being on the planet. Not every living thing on the planet, but every human being, okay? Because there are variances, you know. Some human beings can go so much away from being human. As I've said, this is what happens. This is what's happened to all of us. I know it happened to me over a lifetime. I'm only realising it now because the matrix has come down on me, and I'm like, hey, the reason, you know, I've trusted the matrix, I've trusted the system, I've trusted the world, you know, at least what's around me, more than actual individual human beings, because I've always had negative human beings, always had the narcissistic, psychopathic types come into, because they do, that's, the matrix sends those people to you. And so then you don't trust your human beings, and then you trust the system. But the system is not human. So, you know what I'm saying? I hope you're following me. I'm probably not putting it very well. I hope I am, but I don't think I am. But at any rate, I'm off track again. I'll just finish up here. I was talking about the dogs and the cats, right? The difference between dogs and cats. This is just an example of an ability that we might have lost, okay? Cats can regulate their temperature. Dogs can't. Some animals can, some can't. Humans can't, or at least not very well. We need clothes and we freeze in the winter, and whereas a cat and dogs feel it much more too, you know. So this just then made me think, I only just discovered this. You know, that is probably another thing that humans should be able to do that has been compromised since the intervention at the beginning of time. This is just speculation, I have to say this, can't prove it at all, but I know myself, I feel the cold terribly, and it was very uncomfortable even for a few days here because it got cold when it's supposed to be summertime. And, you know, so you have to put on endless amounts of clothes, and then you're still cold, and then when the summer comes you get too hot, and you're always battling the elements. I believe humans in their natural form, and when they are at a higher evolved level, at a higher spiritual, higher frequency level. Frequency is a scientific fact, but I say spiritual, but it's still a science fact. We are spiritual beings, but there is science to it. It's not airy-fairy rubbish. Everything is frequency and vibration. We're meant to see this, okay? But we don't even, most of us don't even know it. I didn't even know it. But that's the way it operates. The God knows this because he's been around longer and more advanced. Humans are meant to know it, but we have been deprived our information about ourselves. And that's why we've devolved and not evolved as a human being, and are instead going down the path of so-called evolving with technology. Technology is not evolving. Technology is a separate thing to us. It's a totally alien force. It's a system. It's not evolution. You know, why humans would think that now, I don't know, because they wouldn't have thought it 40, 50 years ago. The average person on the street would not have thought that 40 or 50 years ago if you'd have presented. They said, that would be ridiculous. Now we think it's not only not ridiculous, we think it's a good idea, and we're doing it. You know, I don't understand that, to be honest. I know, you know, I can understand how we can get addicted to it because I am too, but I don't understand the concept of how we could seriously think that we would want to be evolving at a technological level. how technology has anything to do with us evolving. I do not get that at all. Even if I thought technology was fantastic, and as I've said before, we got the wrong stuff anyway, in my opinion anyway, and others would agree with this. You know, like even if it was good technology, it needs to be more natural. It's the wrong frequency for the body anyway. As I've said before, the mind and the body, it might give us things, it might give us the convenience and stuff, but that's at the expense of our frequency and vibration. It's kept down low to where we're feeling bad all the time. It's a high price to pay for a convenience. You know, and that's only because we're living in a world that's a matrix that's speeded up beyond our beliefs so that we can't function and settle down to where we can get to a high frequency and see everything and then figure things out and just bring the world to us almost. Instead, we are playing for the Archon God, and, you know, he gives us the choice, but boy, do we play. And we are played on a daily basis, myself included. The only difference between me and probably a lot of people that I see around is that I'm aware of it. But there are other people who are aware of it and who don't play. They're the ones you want to be. You want to get to where I am, but you also want to get much beyond that, because it's no good being aware of something if you're still playing. You have to stop playing in the matrix, or at least playing for your own benefit, knowing that you're playing and knowing that you are playing with the Archon God, and knowing that the Archon, and reading the Archon's God's mind just as who reads yours. So then it's a level playing field. And you would find that if you get to your highest spiritual vibrational frequency level, the Archon God won't want to probably play with you, because, you know, his whole game really is based on you not knowing that you're playing in the game. He only wins. Humanity is lost only by itself. That was the title of the thing, you know, because of its being asleep and in the dark, not because it couldn't win. The Archon God uses that. He knows that. He knows that if he had to play on a level playing field where humans were totally aware and totally saw everything that he can see, that he wouldn't want to play anymore, because it wouldn't be any fun, because there would be no game, I wouldn't think. Even if humans said, hey, I'll still play, if they're like, you know, if I'm, you know, no, because that whole game is based on us being in a fake world and not knowing we're in a fake world. It is a game of deception, a game of it's a game of smoke and mirrors, as they say, as someone said in another video. It's like that. I can't describe it, but once you see it, you know it, but putting it into words is hard. But that's the only way the game really works. There is no game once you see everything very clearly. But I'm still playing the game, even though I see it clearly, because all my fellow human beings around me are playing it. So they force me to play, because I'm in this Archon world with these people. If they were seeing the video game and the world the way it really is, they wouldn't play, and I would stop playing, because I wouldn't have to play them. I'm not playing. I know what the God is doing, because, you know, he has exposed the matrix to me, but he hasn't exposed it to all my fellow human beings around me. So they're playing in it, and they're playing against me. That's how this game works. So I'm forced to keep playing in it, even though I'm aware that it's a game, and I don't want to play. I don't want to play the game, you know, but I'm forced to, because everyone around me is playing it, and they're like, you know, unless you become a really high spiritual human being at a high vibration to where you can basically ignore every human being around you and every environmental issue that's around you. and not play that way. But that takes, you have to get up to a very high frequency for that. And how do you get there when you are trapped with the humans and the environment on around you? As I've said before, it's a catch-22. You almost need to get to that higher level before you can not play, if you're following me. But anyway, I'll just go back and then I'll finish. The cats regulate their temperature, and I believe that that's right. I shouldn't have to, in other words, that would be a fear that would be taken from me, because I fear the cold weather. And then the Archon God has got me in fear, low vibration. I'm uncomfortable. I'm fearful of the weather. I'm fearful of the rain. I'm fearful of the cyclonic winds. I'm fearful that I'll freeze to death. I'm basically uncomfortable. I'm not happy. The frequency is low. But that was another thing that I think humans are supposed to be able to regulate their temperature. They shouldn't have to, but we were taught by evolution that, we had to make animal skins, so we had to kill the animals to get the skins, to make the furs and things to keep us warm. No, I don't think that at all. I think that was all after intervention. I believe we should have because if a cat can do it, why can't I as a human do it? Humans are supposed to be more superior than most of the animals, aren't they? But if you look around the animal kingdom, you can see that every individual animal often has some traits that are superior to some humans. That's because we have not evolved. We were not allowed to evolve, or we made the choice not to evolve. We took the wrong path. Now, also, I was going to say another ability, right? Now, there's a million abilities that humans should probably have. Well, maybe not a million, I don't know, but an awful lot. And I got this only yesterday. I was watching a video, right? These things just come to me and I interpret them and say, hey, that is true. It fits the scenario. It's just, to me, it just validates what I think originally was true and what I see from the world around me, okay? But it's hard to believe it if you've not got it yourself. This is right, but I'm saying, hey, you have to do that because most of us have not got it, myself included. But I'm not too big-headed to acknowledge that I'm at my lowest level. But I am saying, hey, this is not how it's meant to be, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's a choice. It's always been a choice, but we just, like myself through my lifetime, always making the wrong choices and never making the love, the heart choices that not only raise your vibration to where you are physically and mentally superior and happier, but to where you benefit mankind too, because we're all connected. As I said before, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality, but we don't know it. We do have that ability, but we do that, but we do it for the God. We don't know we have that ability, and we're all connected. We don't know that either. We think we have to be connected by telephone and technology, etc. As I've said before, I've went over this before. But at any rate, there was this video I watched yesterday, right? And this lady was telling on the YouTube about how she had what she calls second sight. Now, before I go into this, and I'll just say it quickly, I do not know if this person is real or if they are fake, they're bogus. I do not know. I only saw the video, okay? So I'm not saying that I believe it 100% or not, because there is so much fake in this world that even truth will be presented through fake sources. I could be a fake source right now. I could be a fake source, okay? I could be. You could not tell. It will be for you to discern. And that's something that we've also lost, because that is an emotional, mental thing. And a lot of that has been closed down. We don't operate on our instinct and our emotions like we should. They are our better points, as I say. They give us the truth. In this deceptive world, in this matrix world, the only real thing that we have going for it is our instincts, and we don't believe in those. We believe in our intellect and in the facts that are presented to us through the computer, through the technology, you see, the matrix. We believe in the matrix, not our own instincts, not anything connected to us just as a human with no technology. We do not think we have anything. This is the reverse of what was originally. This is my information, and this is what I believe to be the truth. But that's for you to decide. Now, this woman said she had second sight, right? As I say, I don't know who or what or whether this, but I do think that what she was saying, whether she herself is authentic or not, fits and is true of another ability that humans should have, and that if she's authentic, that one in a billion does have, or maybe less than that. She might be the only woman in the world. I've never heard it before, but I already acknowledge this ability and many others, abilities that even I would not comprehend because they've been deprived to us. But she basically could see, second sight she called it, but basically from the day she was born she could see. She didn't see in colour, she could see, she could look at humans and see what they were made up of, almost like she had x-ray eyes, you could say. So she could see in the body just with her own eyes, and she could see all the atoms that made up the body. And therefore she could heal sicknesses and illnesses and reach into the human body. Because, to be honest, from what she was saying, although she didn't actually say this, I would have to say that if she has this ability and she's authentic, she was at a high vibrational level. Because otherwise she would be taken over by the matrix or manipulated, where she clearly was not. She was clearly operating for the good of humanity by helping people and healing them and stuff like this, with her ability to see through the human body and see how it was made up. So she could see not only what's wrong with it, but she could literally reach in with her own energy, because she was a high frequency. And I'm only guessing this, her own frequency and energy interacting with the frequency of energy with another human being that had a sickness or something, or where the molecules were not right. She was explaining this, that she could reach in. In fact, she actually said that there was, in one instance, another entity inside a human being creating illness to where the human being felt sick and was in a bad way. And she could see this with her eyes because of the second sight. She could see the molecules were mingling. And when she pulled the energy out, the frequency or whatever you like, out of the body, gradually, one piece at a time, she ended up with another entity, an entity that is not human. That is because this world is run, I mean, I'm taking it beyond the human level now, but you can turn off if you like at this point, because I'm saying that even if you don't believe that this world is not what look, this world is not what you think anyway. You'd have to probably acknowledge that. But most people might say, well, it's run by humans that have a lot of control, that operate all this technology and stuff. And they are very powerful, and they might be a little crazy, or they might have lost touch, or they might worship the wrong, or they might worship gods that they think are benevolent to them, but may not be benevolent to everyone else. They may even be deceived too. Because if there is the technological being, other God, that even manipulates their beliefs and their religions and their belief in a particular God, you know what I'm trying to say is that they could worship a God, but that God is connected to the technological entity, real God that rules the earth, the real power, shall we say, the real controller. They are really then, they will also be playing in the matrix in a funny kind of way, but they probably won't think they are, because they will think they control humanity, because they will, because humans control humanity too, but they operate and work for their God. Now, whether that God is the true God entity that really rules, or whether it is a they also might be playing in the matrix. In other words, they could be worshipping their God or their image or their image of God, whatever it is, their entity. You know, let's just say it's, let's just say they're worshipping Satan, right? Or a Luciferian type God, okay? That could be real and probably is real. It's real to them, and they believe that if they do certain things and if they make humanity a certain way, and if they do certain things, and if they themselves think about themselves a certain way, that they're serving their God, their Satan, their Lucifer, and that he then will reward them, and he will too. He will give them physical goodies. But they also are still playing in the matrix. So are they really serving the true God, or is there a God even that is manipulating even them and their God? If you follow me, that's taking it one step further. But I'm only putting that out there for those people if they're listening. That's just for them to consider, because it just occurred to me. But that's what, you know, I would think that you would still probably not go with what I'm saying. I would think that you would say that your God is serving, because the God will serve you. But does the God love you? Or does the God only give you things if you give him your service? Would the God love you if you were free and went against him? That's an interesting question. That's for you to decide. And I could be wrong. He might still stick to you, but maybe you could try that out. I don't know. Because this is just the information that I'm getting. So I don't know if it's correct or not, okay? But anyway, I've gone off the track again, because that was to the very top people in the world, not people that I know. And I generally here am talking to us that are right down the bottom. But I'm aware that I am controlled by the people at the top, even the humans at the top, because my very system, the world that I live in, is not controlled by me. It is controlled by my government type things and all that sort of thing that's around me. You know, I did not create the community that's around me. Heaven forbid that I would have. If you only knew what it was like, no way would I, because it is negative, and humans are manipulated, and basically they take notice of what they're told 100%. They never question gossip. They never question information. I see this all the time. It'd be a bit like me if I've got a best friend and they give me gossip about someone and say, hey, you better pick on so-and-so, they're naughty, they did this and that to me. And so I say, oh, you're okay, I'm your friend, I'll do that. It's like that, and that's how the world operates. People don't think for themselves. They don't question their actions. They don't question their friends or their community or their associates or their systems or their, you know, or their, you know, whatever group they're in this society. They don't question it because they want to fit in and they want to be part of that. No one wants to be like me, ostracized and a loner, to where you're fighting the whole world with no support. And I'm not even fighting, because I'm not a fighting person. You know, I'm a passive person. I've always been shy and frightened of other people even. So, but now I'm like, hey, if this is the end times, and I think it is, what have you got to lose? Because you're already going to lose your life. So, but it's still frightening, very frightening, terrifying, in fact. But it's not something you've got any choice, because if you're plonked into it, it's like, I guess this is how a lot of people in the world, I suppose, become what they call a reluctant hero. They haven't got a choice. You know, if you're in a war zone and you've got to run, you know, past some fire to get to safety, you're going to do it. So you're going to be a hero even if you're really a coward, if you know what I mean. There is no heroes or cowards in this world. And we are very much in survival mode. So that makes us all kind of cowards anyway, in a way, because then fear comes in. Once you become very fearful, you will do what is expedient at the time and what you think will give you safety. Unfortunately, if only that were true, most of the time it's a very temporary safety, and it leads to more bad stuff down the track, in my view. But at any rate, I've gone off track again one more time. The second sight, the lady with the second sight, whether she's real or not doesn't matter, whether she's truthful or not doesn't matter. Humans should have this second sight. Okay? And she could see through the human body, another ability that has been suppressed and taken from the human being, so that we can play in this Archon, mad, mind control, chaotic, uncivilized matrix, where we think it's civilized because we have a society, but society itself is part of the matrix, and it's not really civilized because it's not authentically civilized. It's controlled civilization. It's all about stopping humans from being free. Humans should be free and civilized, because in their natural state, they don't think about not being civilized. They just automatically think civilized all the time. They don't think in terms of fear. They have no fear of other humans. That's right, like even 40 years ago, they left all their doors open all the time. So we've become more fear directed. That's just another example that we haven't progressed. I could use a million examples. Some people don't like it when I do this because they're like, hey, no, the world is good. But no, it's not, because if it's good, why would you now have to have everyone living in fear and more security and more surveillance and more authorities, more conditions, more rules, more regulations? No, a normal human being in their normal state should be free and civilized. The two go hand in hand, and they're completely, that's just a normal way of thinking that human beings should think. But instead we're indoctrinated to be thinking the opposite, that to where we're not only not free physically, because we're closing ourselves in with our own fear. Mentally, we're closing ourselves down. As I say, humans are defeating themselves. They're humans are lost to themselves, as the title went, as much as to the matrix. They allow the matrix, so that closes them down physically to where you have more control in your actual physical world. But mentally, they're doing it, because if you thought free mentally and were civilized just in your thinking and trusting in your thinking, you wouldn't allow the matrix to bring in the physical controls, because you wouldn't fear, so you wouldn't need them. So you would say, no, I don't need that. Whereas while the matrix puts you in fear and suspicion, and to where you can't trust your fellow human being or trust the world around you, your environment, because the matrix is deliberately putting a war zone around you, then you will invite the matrix in to offer you some sort of safety, because you're not saying, hey, I'm a free spiritual person, I'm just going to walk through that field. Like that woman that has the X-ray eyes, you could say, that has the second sight. She sees the truth, so she is not fearful of things. She's not fearful of disease. She's not fearful of the body anymore. She's not fearful. She knows she can cure it all. She sees what's wrong with it. And she sees how the world works. She sees that it's all just, yeah, like the Matrix, all just atoms and things, and that it's not really solid, that she's living in a fake world, and that she can manipulate it with her energy, her thinking. Thought creates reality, but it's all an energy thing as well. I don't understand it because I'm not at that level. But basically, she knows she can manipulate and change reality, so she's not fearful. We are fearful because we do not think we can do anything, because our abilities have been deprived from us. They've been taken from us. And even if they're still there, even if they were still there and to where we could fully wake up and use everything, we don't believe it. So our own ignorance and our own belief in the matrix and the technology and the world around us, and I keep hitting on the technology because I think that that is the big thing in recent times. In the past, I wouldn't have had to mention that. We'd still be in a situation where we aren't free and at our full level and aware to where we can make proper choices, to where we can say, do we want to play in the matrix? Do we, do we want to interact with the Archon God? Who is the Archon God? Are we really worshipping the correct God even? Who is the correct God? Which one is it? There are many gods. A God is only who you choose to worship, okay? So we make the God. A God can come or a being can come, but it's only us that will give that God the power, because we will say, we accept you as our God. That's our choice, who or what we accept as that, and how we want to change ourselves in order to accommodate that God. Because that's what we're doing. We have accommodated the God, or the gods, if you like, and their minions or whatever. But, I can't put a title and a name on all these things. But even the people on the planet, on this earth domain, shall I say, sorry about the use of words, I've been here too long too. So I'm indoctrinated and conditioned with all the ideas that I find very hard to let go of. Even humans that worship particular gods on this planet, they give their whole self over to that God, and they do as the God tells them, and the God tells them what they are. Now, I don't know myself if some humans that worship the like if you worship a particular God, you are acknowledging probably that God to be your creator, and that will depend on whether you believe that you were created by the God fully originally, or whether you were already there and there was intervention and they kick-started your evolution, or whether they deprived you of your evolution. These are all the questions that I'm posing, and this is what we have to decide. And there's a million other ways of looking at it. This is how I'm now looking at it. Whoever you hand yourself over to, you have to say, is this the true God? Is it a God that serves me? Do I prefer to stay limited? If that's the case, if you accept that, even you could still accept that. You could say, hey, well, look, okay, maybe I should have went down that path, but I'm now on this path and I'm happy with it anyway. I like the material world. I'm doing all right in this matrix. I don't care if it keeps getting closed down, and I don't care if some people have less freedom, and I don't even care if I give up some of mine, because I'm not fearful that way. I'm fully confident in the matrix and in the system. Then I'd have to say, well, just look at the system, look where it's gone. But can you look far back enough? Do you really know? See, these are all the things that we have to look at. Do you want this world? Do you want a restricted, safe world? Or do you want a free, insecure world? But even that will only be like if that lady had second sight and she could manipulate the reality anyway. I'm saying that if she was for real, or if that ability is an ability that humans were meant to have. Because if some people have it, everyone should have it, I would say. All these little abilities that you hear about that the odd person has, whether it be in a little amount or a big amount, or of course, if you totally dismiss them, then probably you may as well not be listening and you don't believe it, that's fair enough too. But if you think it's possible and you do believe that some people do have some abilities more than others, there's no reason to assume that everyone shouldn't have those abilities, instead of saying, oh, that's just a fluke or that's just this. No, it's just that some people have raised their vibration enough or somehow escaped being affected greatly by the matrix. This, because this woman had it from very young. So clearly, if you can not be affected by the matrix from when you're young, and I'm not sure how that happens, because most of us will be totally, the matrix will definitely focus on us. 100%. Every single human being is, without exception, on this earth, is focused on by the matrix. Don't think that because one person gets more, or that there's, like I could feel right now that the world is just focused on me because I'm feeling the matrix on me, but that is really not true. Every person is watched by the matrix. It's just that if you're playing for the matrix, they give you more leeway because you're not going to upset you're not going to upset the equilibrium, you're not going to upset the cart, or whatever the saying is, you're not going to rock the boat, But if you did start to rock the boat, but if you have been able to raise your vibration before the matrix comes right down on you, or if for some reason you're almost born into that, and therefore, because I've said before, the matrix and even the Archon God, I don't think, and any God that is on this earth, I could be wrong, is not going to have too much power over a person that has high vibration. That person can then make their own choice. They can interact with the God, or they can interact with humans, but they themselves will be much more a master of their own domain, as they say. All of us are not. We are not master of even ourselves, much less our domain around us. And this is the thing. Any rate, I better close off because I've gone on too long and I don't think I've done it very well again. I hope that I mentioned the regulating the body temperature and the second sight thing. They're very far-fetched, but the regulation isn't very far-fetched because, like I say, cats can do it and a lot of animals can do it, and we're supposed to be, so, and it's quite possible that some animals, some animals can hear much further than humans. Some animals can smell blood, even dogs that can track down blood. Humans can't do any of those things. And they're animals. We were meant to be able to do everything that an animal can do and much, much more. Instead, we do much, much less. So think about that. What has happened to us? Something has stopped us from evolving to our natural full potential, in my way of looking at it now, Okay. Good night. Right. Yeah. Good night, Matrix. Well, hello, Matrix. Good night to the people who, hopefully, if there's anyone listening.